Goal is valuable engagement and meaningful interaction with others. And we have three experts in the field to share with you how you can build those communications using technology. And I'm going to introduce the three of them to you just briefly. You'll find their bios online. Starting with Ray Sheen. He is a veteran home education leader, a business leader. He has served in leadership organizations on the board of 3 state organizations and a number of other organizations. He is a business management consultant and works with government, industry, and nonprofit organizations in strategy development and technology deployment. John Brown, our center one, is a homeschool dad in the United Arab Emirates. He is a cybersecurity subject matter expert and advisor. And then the gal on our panel is Jessica Parnell. She is an enthusiastic advocate for home education. She has a passion for innovation and responsible use of technology and learning. She is the CEO of Edivate Learning Group and the visionary behind the popular Discover Homeschool curriculum. She is very involved in technology side of her organizations, has her hands in quite a few things, so we look forward to her broad expertise. We are going to have about 10 to 12 minutes for each panelist, and we will start with Ray Sheen.
Okay, thank you, Cam. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about a digital strategy for your organization, kind of lay the groundwork, and then John and Jessica will go into more detail on a couple elements of that. I just want to start off by talking about the importance of technology. This little graph here, technology adoption rate, shows how long did it take for a technology from when it was first released to actually have 25%, in this case of just the US population, 25% of the population to be using it. And the key to point here is that it's getting shorter and shorter. Every time new technology comes out, people are adopting it much quicker. And I'll just use an illustration here for the smartphone in particular. First launched in 2009, 25% adoption by 2011. By 2014, 25% adoption worldwide. Now there are about 9 million apps available for your smartphone. A lot of those apps were never envisioned by Apple when they first launched the iPhone. And so we just see the technology just blossoms. The point about this is technology is moving very fast and it's changing fast. And if you're not thinking about technology in your organization, you're going to be falling behind. So you really want to be looking at technology, thinking about how you're going to use technology in your organization. So I wanted to tee up this idea of a digital strategy. This strategy should be supporting your overall strategy. Some of you were in the last session where we heard a lot about the importance of vision and mission and goals and a purpose statement and all those, and that's important. That's absolutely vital. Your digital strategy should be one of the ways in which you achieve the goals, achieve the mission, fulfill the vision. And so that's what you want to be looking at is coming up with ways to deal with that. And I'm going to be talking about each of these elements, the platform, using digital technologies for a relationship standpoint, and then communication with agencies, organizations, looking at also enhancing the way you do everything that you have as part of your organization. And finally, I'll talk briefly on cybersecurity. John's going to talk more about that, but I will just touch on it briefly. So let's start off by talking about what do we mean when we say a digital strategy. It includes the elements of your digital footprint of your organization. What does your organization footprint look like? Starts with the website. Everything is going to start at that website. The website is your digital home address. And so you need to have a good website. And again, John's going to talk about that a little bit more. And that's your home address. You want to keep that current. You want to keep that a place when people want to know about your organization, the first thing they do is go look at your website. So you want that website current. Social media, another key element now in today's environment of your digital presence, of your digital footprint. You want to be doing active posting on whatever platforms you're using. There's lots and lots of platforms out there, and I would say what's more important is that whichever platform you're using, you're being current, you're active, you're putting out good material. Which platform you use really varies depending upon the kind of audience you're trying to reach. But you want to be actively monitoring it, actively posting, keeping things current on it. The other element is that when I say the digital presence is when people go searching for you, the search engine optimization. Now that's tied in part to your website, but it also will tie into some of the social media sites you have. And I just want to highlight the fact that if you're not familiar with this, everybody thinks of, well, you Google something, the Google search engine, that's the most important search engine. The next most used search engine after Google is YouTube. And quite frankly, if you don't have a YouTube channel and are already putting things out there on YouTube, you're already behind, because many people never bother to Google things, they only YouTube it. So you want to make sure that you're looking in that area also. Well, I mentioned that we need to have different elements of the strategy. One element of the strategy is the relationship you have with your customers, your members, your clients, whatever term you use for dealing with the people that you are serving in the homeschooling community. And so there, what you're looking at is to have some way of connecting with them, being able to regularly connect, whether that's through an email list, and Jessica's going to talk more about that, but that's whatever the connection mode you're using, you're connecting with them and connecting on a regular basis. We all know if somebody doesn't show up in your feed, you forget about it. And so you want to make sure you're regularly showing up in their feed in whatever connection, whatever method you're using. Regular communication, very important. When we first started homeschooling, and of course this is a long time ago, back in the 80s, and started one of the organizations that I worked with, we had worked with that organization for about 2 years. I then had, for business reasons, we had stepped off for about a year, came back onto it, and during that year, the others in the organization had stopped doing the regular communication. So we get back onto the board and we start putting out a newsletter, and folks were saying, gee, we thought the organization folded because no one had talked to us in a year. We thought it didn't exist. So we keep putting out this monthly newsletter, and this again was way back in the 80s, and so we were literally mailing them, printing them and mailing them. And even 6 months later, people would get them and say, oh, we didn't think you were still in existence. Yeah, we've had a couple newsletters, but if you're not touching them regularly, you're going to be out of their mind. They're going to lose focus on what you are and do you even exist. So you want to make sure you have a campaign, you have a method for touching them on a regular basis, keeping that relationship current. So you want to make sure whatever it is that you're touching them on a regular basis. Now, when I say agency-organization relationship, what I mean by that is there are others, not your members, not your customers, your clients. There are others that you need to be communicating with, and you want to communicate with them digitally if possible, because it'll be much faster. So for instance, one of the organizations I'm with right now, we have a service that we get when the legislature's in session. We're getting this regular service of what are the bills, what is the legislature, anything related to education, we find out about immediately, and it comes in as just an email that comes in. It's one of those relationships that we put in place to make sure that we're getting that information quickly. We don't get caught by surprise. Also, you want to be looking to just establish digital accounts with as many of the vendors or other folks you work with. It just reduces friction and reduces work. I know some folks have talked about there's so much work in running the organization. Well, quite frankly, if you digitize a lot of it, there's not as much work. You can get things done a lot faster if it is using a digital communication, digital technologies. And then the last point I have there, participate on digital platforms that provide the information. What that means is now, again, looking at not talking so much with your customers, with your clients, your members, but out in other areas where you can be providing information into legal, legislative, political world, into commercial world, being able to communicate beyond those platforms and be visible on those platforms. Have a presence and be communicating. In terms of your internal operations, so now I'm talking about using the digital technologies for running your organization. Well, the first thing there I want to say is map your organization, and that first word says most understood. What I mean to say there is must. That was a typo, I'm sorry. You must understand what you're doing if you're going to digitize it, if you're going to automate it. And I'm on the board of SCAES, the South Carolina Association of Independent Homeschoolers. We started 30 years ago, and we at that time, one of the services we offered to our members was help them keep records of their home education for the families. And of course, 30 years ago, we were keeping all those records manually. One of the things we did is we eventually digitized all those, put all those online. So now it's much easier for us to help a family who calls us that says, we need to find, what was it? We can't find our records from 3 years ago. Well, we've got it. We've got a copy of it, and they're digital, and we can immediately get them to them. But we had to figure out, what do we do, and then how best to do all that digitally. And we ended up creating our own application, internal application, for being able to handle how do we work with all of our members, how do we provide our services. And in doing that, it's significantly reduced the amount of time and effort on the part of our staff to be able to do the work they're doing. So now they can really be focused on serving families and not doing paperwork. So again, identify your processes, digitize, use platforms. Wherever possible, use commercial platforms. You don't need to invent everything yourself. Use commercial platforms if they're available, if you can customize them a little bit to what you're doing. You don't have to become technology wizards. You probably want to have somebody on your board or someone with a 16-year-old son who can act as your technology expert for the organization. But that's you'll want to be able to just keep track of that. Now, I mentioned here, consider automation and AI. You may want to start looking at letting ChatGPT write some of your articles. Feed it, here's the key information, here's the stuff we want to work with. At least let them give you the first draft. There's ways to use AI that can be very helpful for you, very beneficial, as long as you make sure you stay in control, but let it do some of the manual work for you, some of the research work. Last point I wanted to make on terms of those themes was the cybersecurity one. Assume that you are constantly under attack. Your systems are probably being attacked on a regular basis. That's why you should have, if you don't already have, some type of virus scanning, some type of barriers or something to block the attackers. There's people who want to get information on your families. They want to get it because lots of information about young kids. And unfortunately, in the world we live in today, that's a place where predators look for stuff. And so assume you're constantly under attack. Make sure you've got ways to protect the data, the information. You have those in place, firewalls of some type. Restrict the access, not only access digitally, but also restrict access physically to your systems. But don't overlook the fact that there are people who can get access to a computer that is part of the organization system can then get into everything else. So think about keeping track, protecting your assets. Also the last point I have there is conduct audits periodically. Have somebody check things to make sure that there isn't a vulnerability that you hadn't thought about or that you missed along the way. So in terms of strategy planning, just a couple of points here. You want to look at what digital strategy am I going to have for helping the organization. Again, it should be focusing on your organizational strategy. The technology should help you achieve your mission. Your mission is not technology. Your mission is serving families. Your mission is promoting home education. Technology should be helping that. So don't let the technology begin to rule you. Rely on different technology channels, different applications. Use what's out there. Build on that. I have a couple points of some good strategy and bad strategy elements. Just make sure as you're looking at the good and bad strategy, think about those as you're putting your strategy together. With that, I'm going to turn it over to, I'll turn it back over to you, Kim.
Okay, thank you, Ray. I just want you to know the slides you see will be available later online with GHEX so that you can refer to those along with the audio recordings. So if you miss something, you can wait for that. I appreciate Ray talking about needing to use digital resources and digital automation. It's the old word we used to call delegate, where we would delegate. We have too much to do, so we delegate it to someone else. Well, this is delegating it to our digital helpers. I was wondering, in those of you who are here, how many of you are either, I'm going to have you raise your hands in a minute, but feel like you're just kind of beginning to explore this area? How many of you are somewhat capable and knowledgeable already? And how many of you are very comfortable? So I'll start with beginning. How many of you feel like you're just beginning this area? Okay. How many of you feel like you're somewhat capable and knowledgeable? Okay. And how many of you are very comfortable with most of this technology and so forth? Okay. And then the rest of you are somewhere in between. So it gives you all an idea of who your audience is here. John, we'd love to hear from you now.
All right. Thank you. Just wanted to say it's refreshing to be amongst people who have the same passion and vision, and I don't have to explain why my kids are socialized. So thank you for coming, and thanks, Ray, for what you've done so far, setting this up. And I wanted to talk about creating a website. I think a lot of people think that there's a technical component or there's some barrier to entry for creating a website. I would say that is untrue from the very beginning. To get started, if you would like to do some kind of specialization or some other things, it may be required to bring somebody in. But the point of this presentation is to let you know that if you want to create a website, it's totally doable. You don't have to be a coder or an IT person or anything else. You just need the desire and a little bit of time. So the beginning, you start with an idea. And not all ideas are created equal, of course, but you can start very general. You want to help someone in the community. You want to bring somebody together. You have some sort of something that's missing in your homeschool experience that you want to build on and to draw people in. But your goal is to end up with something specific that you can create your identity with. So, for example, if you want to start to reach other families, you can start a homeschool co-op, or you can do a speech and debate, different things, or many things that you can do. But once you decide and come with an idea, you need to really kind of see how it measures up with the technology. So first of all, word of mouth communication and networking is the best. It's the best. However, it doesn't scale. You can't reach nearly as many people. But it's really the best advertising, and the more you can establish that, the better off you are. Of course, traditional advertising, like advertising for this event, this sort of thing. Earlier today, they were talking about doing press conferences and talking with the local newspaper, having them do different things. Those are ways to reach other people. And then social media, which is on the other side of website creation. It's cost-effective, quick, engaging. You can reach a lot of people very quickly, and you don't have to spend a lot of time getting things out there. Of course, you're not able to get your identity, which is what you want to do. And with a website, this is what it brings to you. It brings you that formal identity where you can put all of your ideas and all of your interest into one place, which is who you are. And this is something that Ray had touched on earlier. And it is the way to make yourself known and to get your information out there. And opposed to social media, if you put your information in a Facebook page, you don't really own that. You just kind of have it out there. You can't really control it. It's not something that is going to help you establish a solid identity. And also, if you decide to do a website, you can bring in the social media and just plug that in and make that a part of who you are. That's typically the way most people do it. They start with a website. They have links to their social media. The social media sites have links back to the website, and you create that spectrum of ways people get their information. People have different ways of accessing what they need, and that's the way to do it. And with a website, you can add all the customizations, your email, e-commerce, branding, database, applications. You can do many, many more things than you can with the social media thing. So at the basics for setting up a website, you start with a domain name. Does anyone know what an IP address is? Mm-hmm. Right, maybe not. But the internet runs off of addressing. It runs off of addressing, and those addressings have to map to a name. So you create a name, and the name maps to the IP address and sends you to where you're supposed to be over the internet. You also need a platform. There are 3 examples up there: WordPress, Wix, Squarespace. Those are pretty much big ones. There are many other ones out there. Most of them will allow you to go in and you sign in with an email or whatever, and you can create your own website just for practice. And if you decide that you like it or something you want to expand on, or you like the way the platform provides you your identity, you can go ahead and make that your website, assign your domain name, and you're off and running. And within these platforms, there's a theme or template that you can use. There are custom templates that you can use. There are many ways to customize your website. You can start from scratch if you really feel adventurous. And then once you finish with your template and all that, you go in and you do your design and your content, and you get creative, and you create that brand and identity of who you are. So in the design process, this is thanks to my homeschooled daughter, who's a branding person. She gave me this super formula for designing a website, and so you spend 50% of your time establishing your expertise. So that is content for the most part. And then your approach and values is 30%. And then 20% is aesthetics. So this is kind of a general rule of thumb for the design process. And this may take a fair amount of your time depending on how you want to brand yourself. So once you get into the design phase, you want to avoid making mistakes. So one problem with design is overloading your content with a lot of words. You want to make it a flow. You want to make it readable, and it's just like with this PowerPoint. I was really challenged to keep the wordiness down on it to make it readable. So it's the same thing, the same process. You avoid putting too much content into a single space. You make it navigable and readable and interesting, hopefully, is the goal, and to reach your target. So you want to separate your sections. So if you have say, for example, if you had a section for field trips, you would put that in a separate area, or parents meetup, or something like that. You create those separate links and pieces that will entice the user to draw them in, and then they can drill into it and get the fuller content. And that's part of focusing your content. What you want to do is avoid being everything to everyone. You can load up your website with lots and lots of information, and that tends to be a little bit overwhelming and takes you off of what your core message is. So you need to know where you're going with your message, and keep it concise and neat. And also, you want to make sure you have a backup of your site. If you do not have a backup and you, for instance, get attacked with ransomware or something like that, or you have a crash, or your content provider goes out of business, there are many things that could happen. You want to make sure you have a backup. Okay. And okay, so the end result, you'll have an engaging, informative, concise website that suits the target group, accomplishes your goal. And with the website, you can expand on that and do many, many other things that you can't do with the social media word of mouth. Okay, so this is the first part of what I had. I specialize in cybersecurity, and I wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about your data and what you do online. And I have a few statistics I just want to show you. Should take just a few minutes and see what you think. Okay, so this is who uses your data. So there's kind of a misconception that when you put your information out there that the sites own your data. It's not really, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but what is more important is how they use your data. So when you get these free services, they always, I don't know, everyone has seen this terms of service that you read. It's called different things, but it is what lawyers put out there for you to sign so they can basically do what they think they need to do with the data that you give them. And I won't get into what they actually are doing, but I will show you what the size of these terms of service agreements are, which is fairly astounding. So Microsoft's terms of service, they're legal thing that you say yes to when you go right into the license agreement for Microsoft products or Microsoft Live or Office 365, all that stuff. You're signing a 30-page document that basically indemnifies Microsoft from any sort of responsibility and basically says they can do whatever they want with their data. I don't know if that's what it says, but they wrote 30 pages, so my guess is they can do whatever they want with your data. And if you can go down the list, and even at the very bottom, Amazon is 5.5 pages. What I basically did to get this statistic was to go to the terms of service for each of these sites, copied it into Word, and just counted out the words in the document, and then created the page count on it, and that's what you have. It's pretty astounding that you have these staff attorneys creating these documents that are very cumbersome, and they're not misleading. They're very direct in what they say, but they're very difficult to understand. Okay, and this is the information that you are putting out there. That Google has. Anyone who uses Google, all this information is out there for them to use. It's quite a bit.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
We'll come back to this in the Q&A session. So, Jessica, we will enjoy hearing from you next.
I'll follow suit with the men and take a step down using the step, though, instead of the big job. So thank you for attending. Before I start, I did see a lot. None of you seem to raise your hands as beginners. So let me start by asking, how many of you have a website? All right. How many have an email list? Okay. What about anyone conducting webinars? Okay, so it looks like the same people. I'll give some intro information to some of these things then. So first, just a quick introduction. Edivate Learning Corp is a homeschool-specific corporation. We have 5 companies within the corporation that has been about homeschooling, home education since its inception in 1989. We have a homeschool academy. We have a curriculum. We have an ed tech platform. And we also have a distributor, a curriculum distributorship. So I want to start by just talking about technology. We've talked to a couple of individuals already who've said, I'm kind of hesitant to dip too much into technology because it takes away the personal approach. So I want to start by just a quick illustration. I remember as a little girl, my mom saying to me, I remember telling my mom that I wish there was such a thing as a machine that would wash dishes. So that for her was a revolutionary technology when the washing machine came along. And then fast forward and we think about the technology innovations. I'll talk a little bit about AI at the end here. But when we think about AI and it's coming, and a lot of people are wary of it, and we'll get into that a little bit. But the last innovation before this that has this significant of an opportunity to change the way we do things was the smartphone, which Ray mentioned. That was 13 years ago. Before that was the World Wide Web. Some of you are too young to know when that came out. I was alive and excited when the World Wide Web came out, but I also remember people being very concerned about the World Wide Web. AI will accelerate all of that very quickly. But why I believe that a technology is so important kind of lines up with what Ray was saying. As an organization, our company name, Edivate, is a combination of educate and innovate. And our desire has always been to be innovative in education so that the home education movement can be always ahead of the education system, the bureaucracy system. And right now, because of our embracing of digital technologies, we are delivering education to underground schools in China. We're able to do that full curriculum that otherwise should have been shipped. We are delivering education to groups in Myanmar, who are leaving the country due to the unrest that is there. They've actually just conscripted their 12 and up in the military, and families are saying, we need to leave because these kids are being put on the front lines. And we're able to serve people all over the world. We were able to jump in with Ukraine and help several families who had to leave the country and now had no education option. It's because of technology. So I encourage you not to hold back, embrace technology because it will change the way that you're able to serve individuals. So I'm going to if you jump to the next slide, I'm going to touch on just a few of the ways that we utilize technologies. A lot to cover in 12 minutes, so I'm going to talk fast, but most of what you see here will be suggested technologies. They're not the be-all and end-all. We actually went down the road, and I echo Ray, don't develop it yourself. We built our own. We built our own system with all of the email technology and the marketing and registering students, and it's wonderful, runs all of our systems, but it's very, very expensive. So I recommend use the tools that are out there. So first I'm going to start with email. As John talked about with your webinar, you have an opportunity to gather people's email addresses so that you can begin an email campaign. We can go to the next slide. Oh, thank you. So these are just a couple that are useful if you're looking for a system that use it. Each one tells you a little bit about what's easier. What's the value of that email campaign is that you're able to keep in touch with those families with important information. Some of you are running organizations for your country, for perhaps a whole region, perhaps your city, and you can be delivering information to them, making certain that they're getting what they need, but also keeping your name, your company name in front of them. Because as Ray said, it's lost very quickly. When you lose that touch, most of the individuals who are looking to jump into home education are not calling one of you. They're calling many, and they're looking for information, and they don't necessarily remember who said what, nor do they necessarily remember your organization name. You're not Nike. We're not Nike. We wish we were, right? We wish we had that recognition. So just keep that in mind. That constant contact is very important. But it's also an avenue for you to be delivering relevant information. So when someone gives you your email address, their email address, they're trusting you. They're trusting you that you are not going to send them garbage information. They want meaty, they want information they need, they want encouragement. So take it seriously. Make certain that what you're delivering to them matters. And I recommend what we do in our organization is we actually map out at least a quarter at a time of what we plan to deliver so that we can pivot quickly when something comes up. Right, when Russia invaded Ukraine, we had one family who was a missionary family there who was fleeing, and he had a whole network of individuals. And immediately we were able to pivot and send information and hit that list to be able to give them, here's an option, here's how we're going to support you, here's how we're going to make it free for a while so that you can educate your kids and not be stuck. But that, because we have a plan for the other content, we can pivot quickly and make that happen. So plan ahead and think about those topics. And then, as Ray said, engage in some of those other platforms where there's forums, where there's Facebook groups, and look at what they are talking about, because you can step in at that point and provide expertise if it's an area of your expertise. You can post it there, and you can also post it on your own website. Next slide, we talk about webinars. That's another great way to build a list is your webinars. And what's great about a webinar is that it can become immediate YouTube content. There's a great AI tool, it's called Opus. You finish your webinar, you can dump it into Opus. It'll turn it into 10 short little snippets. So now you've got short content that you can put on YouTube, on Instagram, on different social media outlets without having to create specialized content. But face-to-face is so important, especially with Zoom. It's interesting because we were using Zoom prior to 2020, and we had the opportunity to really help define it because they were small, and we had the opportunity to say, well, we need this, and we need this, and they were thinking about education. We don't have that power anymore. 2020 changed all of that. But what was interesting is now that phone call is almost obsolete. They want face-to-face when we engage with people around the world or even around the corner. If we can't meet in a room, they want to see our face on Zoom. And webinars give you that opportunity. They get to see you. It builds trust. They get to hear from you. They can Q&A with you. Super valuable for you to get to know your community as well, because you get to hear what their concerns are and help address those. So those are just a couple of different platforms you can use for webinars. And then next is talking about blogs and online newsletters. So Bridgeway Academy, which is one of our brands, we maintain a blog all the time. And this blog becomes an opportunity for us to reach both our own key customers and our own families, as well as those who are looking into homeschooling, maybe stressed about it, not sure what to do. And so our blogs become relevant content that we know people want to know. It's where are your concerns? How can we help encourage you? What information do you need? Again, putting something up there that matters so that people come. And then a strategy around that too is if you are an organization, for example, that serves the special needs population, then you integrate those keywords that are important to them in your blog posts so that people can find you. So when they're searching for that specific keyword and you've put it in that blog post, they're going to find you better. Those who aren't necessarily already someone engaged in your community. But again, make sure that what you're putting out there they want, because you can quickly lose reputation if you're just putting out information that people don't care about as they read one after another that doesn't have relevance. Next slide, talking about software. So one of the things that we've built is Elefango. Elefango is an online ed tech platform, and it's an opportunity for organizations to provide their families with sort of a program that's built for the unschooler. So it's designed to let kids be curious, to be in a safe place, to explore their interests, to build skills, to dig deeper, to earn badges. There's gamification, all built into this software. And so we utilize this platform so that our families are not stuck to just one curriculum. They're able to, through the value that we provide, allow their kids to pursue their own excellence. And when you can provide something like this, a tool like this to them, it builds trust again, because now you're an authority, you're providing them something that's useful to them. And if you're interested, please talk with me. We do have partnerships with organizations where you can either gain a discount or revenue share for your families. Next one is AI. So AI is controversial. How many of you are proponents, are thinking AI is not a place I want to be? Anybody thinking that? All right, well, good. If you're not, if nobody's thinking that, it's good to hear, because as Ray and John talked about, AI can create efficiencies for you that are absolutely amazing. However, we can be a little fearful of it, right? When we think about man interaction with machine, right? Especially as we think about our children. But let me ask you a question. How many of you have one of these? How many of you have a relationship with this? How many of you would take a hammer and smash it right now to prove you don't have a relationship with it? Right? Some of you would, right? We have a relationship with machines. And there was an interesting study, I'm running out of time, so I won't say that. But we do have a relationship with machines, and we have boundaries that we will and will not use this for, hopefully. So I do encourage you, as you think about your AI strategy, is create that policy. What lines will you not cross? As Ray said, you can put first drafts in there. I don't recommend that you just take that first draft and utilize it, because sometimes there's fake information in there. My daughter, who's an attorney, by the way, homeschooled and now an attorney, she said she tried to do that with a case study once, and there were 5 cases mentioned, and when she went to look for the cases, 3 of them were fake. She would have lost her license. So be careful, use it, but be responsible and be sure you're reading it. Make sure that it falls in line with your worldview, what you want to be presenting, and the accuracy that you want. But it can make you very, very efficient in those day-to-day challenges of content, of data analytics. There's a AI technology called Gen, which will actually analyze your data for you and give you very quickly some insights into your data. And there's more coming. There's tutoring, as many of you probably saw, Conmigo, which is an opportunity for students to interact with a tutor who won't give you the answer, but will ask you questions to help work through it. And it's coming so rapidly that we will see in 3 years, we'll look back and probably say, do you remember in the old days when we actually had to XYZ by ourselves, right? So it's coming, and it's strong, and I encourage you to embrace it. And last slide is just an opportunity if you can get that QR code. We have a free 30-day trial for Elefango. You can stop by our booth as well. We're at table 40 to try that out, because it's something I'm very proud of. So I'd love for you to take a look and for your communities.
Thank you, Jessica. This is our question and answer time, so I'm hoping that you all have thought of some questions. I do have a question for our panelists, for whoever would like to answer it. When you think of all that you as an organization can do digitally, and if you have only the time, the personnel to do several, what's the minimal, besides the website, that an organization should spend their resources on? And resources is time and money, personnel. What is the most effective?
I'll start off with an answer on that. I'm going to take us back to, what is your goal, your vision, your mission? What are you trying to do? What's most important to you? If what's most important is growing the organization and finding new members, new customers, new clients, then that's what you spend your money on. The email list or the blog or webinar, something that's going to be reaching out. If you have, let's say, an online school, and your goal is to be very efficient, effective, and then you want to be looking internally. So the answer is going to be, what's the big driver in your goal? And by your goal, I'm talking about your near-term goals. You've got this long-term vision strategy, but what are we trying to accomplish this year How do I use technology to accomplish this year's goal this year? And then I'll use that, the technology again to look at next year's goal next year's.
Yeah, again, I think you need to look at what your goal is, and once you decide what that is, you can look at these different technologies and different methods to get to that point, and then just follow that. I think I'm totally on board with what Ray had said, and not much more to add.
Nothing more to really add to that, except that don't be afraid to reach out to your communities for expertise. If you're developing content to encourage members of your community, there are members in your community who can write very powerful messages from the trenches. So don't be afraid to leverage them as well.
Do you have some questions here? We need someone to handle the mic. Who's handling the mic back here? Nobody's handling the mic here? Okay. All right. Is that a question? Here's a hand here.
I actually have a couple, if that's okay.
Yes.
One is for Ray, and one is for John, and one is for Janet. So real quickly, Ray, when you said we need to do an audit, was that a digital audit?
Yes, a digital audit, you're looking at, that was under the cybersecurity slide. So you're looking for vulnerabilities there. There's a couple different checklists out there of ways to do an audit, and that would be, I would grab one of those and we just run through looking at the different vulnerabilities, check to see where we may have some holes somewhere in the system that people can penetrate.
And okay, so John, is there any alternative to signing the terms of use statements?
Not that I know of. Yes. And really, that's the point, is just to be aware of what you're putting out there and to use discretion on what you do and where you put yourself. So say, for instance, you are a Microsoft user, and just understand that Microsoft does what they do. They have their terms of service, and I don't think you need to read the entire terms of service, but you have to understand that when you turn on a Microsoft system or you go into Office 365, the data goes into the cloud, your emails are being read, those sorts of things happen. Usually on the free accounts are the ones where you have the most lack of privacy, because it's a trade-off. They're providing you something for free, and you're providing them with your data. So it's just really using discretion and understanding what you're doing, and knowing that free is not always the best. Yeah.
And then Janet, explain Opus AI again. And when you said it will divide a webinar into 10 snippets, are those 10 video snippets?
Yes. So there are actually a couple of different tools that will do that. The one we like is called Opus, and you pay for that service, and you take your video and upload it, and it divides it very well. Divides it in points that it actually makes sense. You want to watch it and make sure, but it gives you that content creation very quickly.
And a follow-up on that, can you, if you don't like the sections they did, you can customize that?
Yes.
Very interesting.
One of you mentioned keywords in post and using that being a driver for being found. Are there places that you would say, are there keys to using keywords, inserting keywords, and where should they be?
Yeah, so I mentioned that yes and yes and yes. So first, there are enough different tools that you can use that will, Google itself will give you what are the strongest keywords that you want to be using for your audience. So if you plug that into Google Analytics and even put in a competitor, what keywords are they using, so it helps you see what's being searched. SEO Moz also lets you look at what are some of the strong keywords in your market. The key, though, is to make sure it is natural language, so you're not just putting keyword after keyword, but you're weaving it into sentences, weaving it into the article in a way that is natural language, because Google will penalize you if it's deliberately, it doesn't make sense, right? So their algorithms are constantly changing. But that really can help. It takes time. It's SEO, and it takes time. Anything you do today takes about 3 months to come to fruition. So it takes time, and it's something you have to be continually and deliberate about to make sure that you're continuing to be found, be visible.
Another question? Well, I have a question about the Google Analytics. Is that something that's available for anybody to use?
Now, I'm not the tech person in the company. I believe we set up an account with Google
Okay.
Analytics. I don't believe there's a fee for that. Probably John or Ray can answer that.
There's, you can get a basic service for free. But if you want to get into some more advanced analytics, you will have to pay. But you can get basic service. We use Google Analytics actually with our church, just keeping track of some of the stuff that's happening on our church website and our church systems. And so, and we use the free version for that, which means we're probably giving something away. Hopefully, we're giving away the gospel. And so that's a
And then, if there's no more questions, I do have one more. Oh, is there one? Okay, here we go.
Again, it has to do with keywords, but you mentioned that YouTube is the #2 search engine out there. And so as far as keywords or searchable items, how is it searched on YouTube? Is it querying the audio? Is it the titles? Is it, where is that being searched?
Google owns YouTube.
I'm sorry?
Google owns YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're searching on the keywords for the, it's just like, it's a search engine just like Google. So it's not searching on the content of the video, it's searching on probably the SEO, the keywords.
The title, right?
The
Yeah,
title and any transcript or anything that's attached.
yeah.
I have a comment actually about cybersecurity. This is my husband. So a lot of times it's been a real stressor in our marriage that we have to take these precautions with our personal information for our kids and everything. But one thing that I was with Google Ed the other day on a webinar with them, and one thing that they said was that besides financial institutions, that schools were the next target of cybersecurity threats. And there's a reason for that, and that is because there's children involved. So when we talk about security, that's really important to take that seriously, to take those steps to make sure that like some of us have homeschool associations, and we have pictures of our kids out there. We have, information of our families. And it's really important because we're vulnerable for that. So I just wanted to add that even though it's a hassle sometimes, it's really important. Besides that, it really opened my eyes that besides financial institutions, that education is the next biggest target.
Yeah, I would echo that. I have a love-hate relationship with multi-factor.
Yeah.
But our VP of technology has put that policy into place, and we actually just had a partner of ours was hacked. The hacker sent emails to people in our organization who trust them because it's a partner of ours, and unfortunately 2 of our people responded. Because we have multi-factor, we're safe. They can't hack our system. If we didn't have multi-factor, that response would have opened us to a threat.
So that was one thing that I thought of that I don't think, Ray, that you mentioned, but one thing that our company does additionally is anybody in the company who has a company email address is required every year to go through a security training so that we can recognize phishing attempts and whatnot. And we constantly get emails from our CEO asking for help because he's in a bind and needs money. And, we all now know immediately, we ignore that. But they're after all of us, but because everyone's trained, we know what to look for.
And that's a good point. The security audit will include how are your people trained? And how, so that is an element of a security audit, is what's the training program in place? How do you know that the people who've been through training actually paid attention and didn't just sleep through it? All that is part of a good security audit.
Another thing is, a lot of people think that maybe because they're a small company that they're not a target. It's just simply not true. The way most attackers work is that they scan the network, they look for vulnerabilities, or they look for something that they want. And if they want to get into your network, they can. This happens, penetration testers have about a 95% success rate for getting into networks just to verify the security of networks. So it's best to put up these defenses that are available out there, and just remember that there is no security layer that will be 100% effective. They are all just one layer of security. A security audit is absolutely necessary. However, if a zero-day attack occurs, a day after your audit, you're still vulnerable. So it requires a continuous monitoring of your networks and your policies, changing your passwords, two-factor authentication, those sorts of things, into even the smaller businesses.
We have time for one more question.
I was just going to add just a quick security story along that line. I was at a conference, USA homeschooling conference. There's a state leader in the USA who is a security expert, and he and I were sitting in the lobby waiting for our wives to come down, he had his laptop, and so I just said, so Dan, how easy is it to hack into one of these things? He said, let me show you. He popped open his laptop, and within about 30 seconds, now he's a white hat hacker, so he has all the tools that black hat hackers have, but within about 30 seconds, he had got into the network at the hotel, and then from that got into the computers of the different people, and it was literally looking at what folks were searching and had online. We could see who was watching shows, who were watching things they shouldn't be watching. It took him 30 seconds, and he could be looking at anybody's computer and looking at who were online in that homeschooling conference.
Well, thank you, panelists. This has been very interesting, and we're so glad, audience, that you were here. There's only a few minutes before the next workshop, but please stay and ask more questions if you wish from our panelists, and thank you for coming.